Hello, I'm Mark Siegrist, filling in for Dan Jones this week. Great to be with you. What's a new downtown arena worth to Milwaukee? How challenging is the future for Wisconsin manufacturing? Is cutting back on proactive policing a mistake? And Rick Horowitz has a very powerful take on a potential gun control compromise in Washington. But first, let's begin with our own roll call. Let's go around the round table. We're joined by longtime newspaper columnist Joel McNally, Kevin Fischer, of course, a former broadcast journalist, political analyst, and frequent fill-in host for News Talk 1130 WISN. Denise Callaway is a community affairs and public relations professional. And Gerard Randall, of course, is an education consultant and job creation expert. Now, topic number one. Do we really have to build a new arena in downtown Milwaukee, or is renovating the BMO Harris Bradley Center good enough? Either way, it's an expensive investment. So who's going to pay for it, and what do we really get in return? Those are just a few of the questions explored during a civic meeting of the minds this week as local leadership and out-of-town experts weighed in on the issue. Kevin, question for you, sir. Did anything conclusive coming out of this gathering in your opinion?
No, there's still many, many unanswered questions. And where do you start? How valuable do we think the Milwaukee Bucks are? What will be the price tag for building a new arena? There's all kinds of figures being bandied about. I think the key question is, what are the intentions of the owner, Herb Kohl? Before we go anywhere, we really need to know what he wants to do, what he's going to do. I was flabbergasted. I was listening to our good friend John McCure on WTMJ radio the other day. He was at this forum.
Yeah.
He was sitting near the contingent of City of Milwaukee aldermen. Mm-hmm. I think the conventional wisdom is that a new arena will be in the area of $400 million, which is a lot of money.
Yes, it is.
A lot of money. And then one of the invited guests or speakers was a gentleman who's considered the guru of the economics of sports arenas. And he said that you're not going to build this thing for less than $500 million. And John McCure said there was an audible gasp among officials in his area. So the timing, too, is bad. I think you do need to keep the Bucks, because if they leave, it's going to be next impossible to get another franchise like that back. Mm-hmm. I hear all this talk about, well, let them go. We don't need them, which I think is just foolish, because they are one of a kind in the world, and it's going to be very hard to replace them. But the key question is, how valuable does the community think they are? And right now, they've had a parade of coaches and players, and they're not doing well. And a couple of the players have even squawked that they'd like to get out of here. Mm-hmm. And they're not valued as much as the Brewers. And we saw what a hard time they had building a new venue. So I think a lot of unanswered questions that we need answers to. When
we faced a similar question with the Bradley Center, when Jane Pettit came forward and contributed to the Bradley Center with her husband, the common pitch was, oh, we can't lose a sports team. It's the image of the city. It puts us on the map. In these tough economic times, has that really changed? Is a team as important as it once was?
20 years later, we're talking about building a new facility, and we're using the same arguments that we used then.
Yeah.
My belief is that if the Bucks were part of the public trust in the same way that the Green Bay Packers are, it's an easier sell to convince the public that they should ante up for a new arena, because the community owns the team. You're always going to be held hostage to whoever the owner is if they feel that they're not making enough money, or that the market isn't supporting the team the way they want them to support them. And we haven't defined what our priorities as a community are. I mean, there are pockets here and there that are talking about what our priorities are, but there's no consensus on what those priorities are. And then to put a new arena on that list of priorities and determine how we're going to pay for it then. We've got education needs, we've got safety needs, we've got housing needs, infrastructure.
You just touched on something.
We got to spend $500 million on fixing the potholes in Milwaukee. I think it's a hard sell.
Yep.
And a big part of the reason that it's a hard sell is the team. You know, the team is not doing well. The team, unlike the Brewers or the Packers, the Bucks have just had, I'd say in the past decade, the Bucks have had a hard time, though they're our hometown team, there hasn't been that connection between a majority of fans or beyond the Bucks core fan base. There hasn't been that connection in the community that there has been with the Packers and with the Brewers. It makes it a hard sell.
And why is that, do you think? Why do you like that connection?
I don't know that we're a basketball town. I mean,
Really?
I think that's really part of it. I don't know. I mean, growing up in Indiana, I have that feeling that I know when there's a community that's committed to basketball.
You got that Indiana contingent over there.
And, you know, I don't think that this is a community that's committed to basketball. We don't want to lose a team, but we're not committed to the team enough where, quite frankly, I'm not sure the building a new arena is going to be able to do that much.
You're a little quiet tonight, you know?
Well, it's just that this whole discussion kind of bothers me. It really does. I mean, look what we cut education in this state the most that has ever been cut in its history. We've got a governor who is cutting, you know, all kinds of assistance to local government for every needed service we have in this community. And for some reason, the Milwaukee Journal, I know what the reason is too, they have them on their air and they make money off the Bucks. And the Milwaukee Journal and the Association of Commerce have decided they want us to talk about building a new arena for the Bucks instead of all the other things that we ought to be talking about, education, infrastructure, everything we should be spending money on. It kind of revolts me that that is their priority when education of our kids isn't, when the livability of our cities is not, and that somehow is, you know, as big a baseball fan and Bucks fan as I am, I go to both of those games, both of those sports, and I love going to Miller Park, but when Miller Park was built for $400 million, I was opposed to the taxpayers paying for it. These are millionaire facilities for millionaires, and the Bucks, the reason to build a new arena for the Bucks is to have more expensive seats in it. That's the only reason to build it. And it's seats that are going to be bought by law firms and corporate CEOs. It's not going to be ordinary people going to see the Bucks in those more expensive seats. They can't sell out, you know, the place now, but they want to make more money out of it. And for the leadership in this town to make that their number one priority, I think is disgusting.
I think inevitably, if there's any discussion about putting public money, and that subject has come up here tonight, if there any discussion about putting public money will just kill any plan for a new arena. There isn't the political will to do that.
And there shouldn't be.
I agree.
Is there enough money in this market, Kevin, to float it through corporate
That's
giving?
tough to say. You know, on this program a couple of years ago, I think I stated that when the Pettits go, who's going to take their place? Who's going to be, you know, the one to open up their pockets and contribute to these expenses that we're talking about here tonight? And I don't know. I don't see anybody stepping forward to kind of say, I'll chip in. I'll throw in $500 million.
$30 million name sponsors, 10 of them. That still doesn't get you to the cost of that arena. And that's paying that $30 million off, let's say, over 30 years. Yeah. It does not get, and at that time, they're probably 10 years before those notes are due, they're going to be talking about the need for another facility because this one is 20 years outdated.
The fact that the Pettits produced the Bradley Center as a gift to this community, and 20 years later we consider it a throwaway is to me absurd.
That's another hard sell because you walk into that building and you say, what's wrong with it?
Right.
Exactly. You don't see what's wrong with it. It's a building that, it's not like it's Old County Stadium where, you know, there were times when as I walked through there, I felt like I was taking my life in my own hands as you look at the big, huge cracks in the structure itself. This is a building that from the inside, from the outside, and quite frankly, from the functionality of it, does not need to be replaced. There is nothing physically wrong with this building that requires it to be replaced.
This city has a reputation, too, look at the Miller Park, of just dragging their feet. And the longer we do this, let's say we have to build a new arena someday, then it's going to take us forever to decide who, what, when, where, why. And in that case, then the cost goes up, cost overruns go up, and we're talking even figures north of $500 million.
I still hear the voice of Henry Meyer when he was getting ready to step into his car, and a local reporter approached him and said, what are we going to do if the Bucks leave? And remember what he said?
Let them go.
We survived when the Braves left. We can survive when the Bucks left. And everybody at the time thought it was kind of funny, you know.
Well, and I think there's an attitude. There's an attitude with a lot of people in this community, sad but true, that they feel that way, and that could keep a new arena from being built.
We've been fortunate to have a benevolent owner in Herb Cole who's vested in this community.
Yeah.
Now, getting another one is going to be a hat trick. Another owner that has the similar kind of attachment to this community is going to be a very difficult sell.
And before him, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Right.
And if you can tell me who that individual or individuals are, I don't know who it is. No one's stepping forward and say, I want to save this team. No one's doing it, not at the moment.
All right, let's move on now to topic number 2. It's a double-edged sword when you're a defense contractor like Oshkosh Corporation, supplying the military for major conflicts in Iran and Iraq and Afghanistan mean jobs, of course, and the withdrawal of American troops is good news, but it also means the Pentagon is ordering fewer vehicles. That means some 900 workers will be laid off at Oshkosh this summer. The news comes on the heels of Caterpillar's plans to cut back on mining equipment production in South Milwaukee. Now, since Wisconsin manufacturing is so often connected to various support services and products, what are the chances of the layoffs spreading? And how do we protect a sector of the state's economy that's been largely stable during the recession from further erosion? Gerard, what's your take on this development?
Well, it's difficult when you have so many of your eggs in one basket, as was the case with Oshkosh.
Yes.
But I do think that overall, they're probably going to recover. If you begin to look at what they were producing prior to, fire trucks, vehicles that were meant for first responders, that's still a significant part of their business, and they'll probably have to figure out ways that they can expand.
Why did they get away with it? They had a reputation for producing outstanding fire apparatus.
I think they got away from it because there was an urgent need and quick money in military equipment.
Okay.
And so when you expand like that and you take advantage of it, you have to believe somewhere down the line those good days aren't going to last. They've talked about bringing back some of the jobs that they've outsourced, and that might help to mitigate some of the layoffs that they're going to face. But that doesn't address the reality that they're going to have a better product mix if they're going to recover those heydays that they have enjoyed over the last 10 years.
Go ahead.
I just think that it was a bit of a mistake by Oshkosh not to think this day was going to come, and it's a bit short-sighted on the state not to press that kind of an issue. Because we know that these jobs, this equipment was not going to be needed forever. And I think it goes back to the question that we really have to ask ourselves in the state of Wisconsin, and that is, what is our plan for creating jobs? Because, we continue to fall when it comes to, states creating new jobs. We're now 44th. Certainly with the loss of these jobs at Oshkosh, the loss of these jobs that are likely to come from the mining industry making decisions that, we've got to cut jobs because nobody's buying our equipment. What is our game plan as a state in terms of job creation? Right now, it seems like our game plan in state in job creation has been to talk about residency and to talk about gun control and a bunch of other things that don't have anything to do with job creation, and that, quite frankly, some of them, like changing the size of the county board and reducing the number of and reducing pay for folks, those are local control issues where the state has not paid enough attention to big ticket issues like this around job creation and helping companies think beyond what happens, what's their next step. There's this saying from one of my favorite TV shows, The West Wing. The question was always, what's next? What's next? We, as a state, are not thinking about what's next, particularly in manufacturing, and it's going to hurt us. It's going to continue to cause problems.
We knew that those wars were winding down, and we were very happy about it. I mean, believe me, we don't want our economy to be dependent on wartime. We've got too many people in Congress already trying to keep military spending in their districts that we don't even need because, my God, we're losing jobs. No, we want to create jobs of the future. We want to create jobs that don't have that, life, shelf life that we ought to be celebrating the fact that we're not putting that money into the military
And yet,
anymore.
back in the day of Les Aspin, he was very good at keeping military procurement going in the state of Wisconsin, even during peacetime.
Well, you have two senators now, though. It's
At
one of
odds.
life's great ironies. They're at odds, but they end up in the same spot. Senator Baldwin is certainly one who appreciates the wind down of the war, and as a result, there's less money going into military spending. And Senator Johnson certainly wants to see a decrease in all spending. And so he's not going to be an advocate, even though that company is close to his home. He's not going to be the one that's going to advocate for increasing spending just so that it can salvage a company in his own home
And
state.
he actually was a real force behind the sequester, which got deeper cuts in the military than either Republicans or Democrats ever would have had the courage to make politically before.
Right.
So they're in an odd way,
They've ended up
because of his extremism. He has gotten some military cuts that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise, and truthfully, that's a good thing. We don't need to overspend on the military.
Kevin, how concerned are you about this spreading when, at least during the recession, largely Wisconsin's manufacturing sector, was able to get us through the tough times?
It could. I think of a place like Marinette up north that has secured a couple of contracts, major contracts with the United States Navy to build literal combat ships.
Manitowoc.
And they have the potential of getting even more contracts. In fact, there were so many workers coming into Marinette in the last year or so that they had to build workforce housing for places for those workers to live. On a larger scale, though, by the way, a vice president from Oshkosh said that this day was coming. They knew this. It's just one of the trade-offs of peace. On a larger scale, though, a report out this week said that Wisconsin is the second strongest manufacturing state in the country. And I think we can hang our hat on that. A lot of manufacturers are investing in capital equipment because of the great demand for their products overseas. We have a tremendously skilled manufacturing workforce. We need to build that up by getting our youngsters more involved in manufacturing and telling them that that's a good avenue for you to pursue. And there are some initiatives that are doing just that. The building we're sitting in right here is part of our manufacturing success. We have a very successful, effective technical college system that we put a lot of investment in and put a lot of money behind. As long as we can continue along this route, I think Wisconsin overall, even though we read these stories and we don't like to see them, I think manufacturing historically has been strong here, and I think everything's in place to make it continue that way.
So you're
move on.
opposed to the governor cutting technical education, which is what he just did.
Well, I think that if you go back and look at the record of the state legislature that has included this governor, we have been a very, very, very generous to the technical college system over the
Less generous
years.
all the time.
Let's move on to topic number 3. I found this story to be one of the more interesting stories of the week because when it comes to protective, proactive policing, especially with rather basic services, how do you put a value on prevention? It's no secret that Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark Jr. wants to run his department and fund it accordingly to his own vision. But the sheriff's decisions have often put him at odds with other public officials. So, a Milwaukee County audit was released this week, which called into question the cost of several discretionary programs he's initiated. We're talking about policing like the K-9 unit, airport and county ground security, park patrols, and bus security. The audit says taxpayers could save potentially more than $4 million a year if Sheriff Clark cuts back on those kind of initiatives. But whether discretionary or not, do taxpayers really want to do away with a presence like this that helps promote a quality of life in Milwaukee County? Denise, your thoughts?
Well, I think that we have to take a look at that. I mean, anytime, particularly in county government, if you can say there's a way that we can save $4 million, you need to take a look at what that looks like and what the consequences are for that. And I think the other thing that this really may force us to have some discussions about is how do we take a look at what the Sheriff's Department is really responsible for, and as the effort that would have saved, again, millions of dollars between the city and the county to do some shared work and have MPD do some of the work that the county was doing around patrolling parks and other things, we need to go back and take a look at those cost-saving measures. At the end of the day, for taxpayers, I don't think it makes a Hills beans worth of difference about whether or not it's the sheriff's department that's doing something or it's the local police department that's doing it. Are we getting good, effective services? And if there's a way that we can find to save a couple of $1 million a year, we absolutely positively need to do that. Milwaukee County is not in the kind of financial condition where if there's a report that comes out that says, hey, there's a way you can save some money here, you absolutely have to take a look at it.
Kevin, your thoughts?
This is the audit that said that Sheriff Clark runs an extremely effective department. Is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Efficient and effective.
Yeah,
Right, and I don't think that's the argument. The question is, do we need these services, and do they have to be provided by the sheriff's department?
Having read many, many, many audits during my career, I can tell you, gee, I'm not surprised that an auditor found a way that maybe we could save some money. And of course, if you cut the things that this auditor is suggesting, you're going to save a lot of money. But I got to tell you, I'll just speak for myself here and not other fiscal conservatives. But if you ask me, and I think my local government where I live wastes a lot of money. They tax too much, they spend too much. But what I do want my tax dollar being used for is public safety, all right? Police, fire, sheriff's department, public works. I want my garbage picked up. I want my snow plowed. I don't think there's any compromise for that. And for Denise to say, well, yeah, let's just, you got to look at it, okay?
Yeah, you have to.
That's welcome to the world of fiscal conservatism. Yeah, then let's cut the county board and save millions of dollars there too if you want to be consistent. But I tell you, I think there are a lot of people like me that will not compromise with public safety and do not want to see the sheriff make these cuts, and he's not going to abide by this audit anyway.
You had me until you started talking about cutting the county board.
You want me to rewind the tape? I'll take that back.
Okay, please do. We're on the same page up to that point. I think that those units that the auditor was suggesting could be handled by someone else still bear cost. And those costs aren't necessarily going to be any less if the Milwaukee police handle them or if they outsource them to some private source. That's not necessarily going to be the case. What I took comfort in was that the auditor said there was efficiency and there was effectiveness under the sheriff's administration. And I'm a big fan of his. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I also think, though, that if we're going to have those units, and for the most part, I don't see anything in that list that he provided that we wouldn't have.
Actually, I do, and I quickly.
The K-9 unit?
The K-9 unit. The K-9 unit is used in the House of Correction for intimidation of the inmates. It is an ugly use of dogs against human beings, and that should go, period. The parks can be patrolled by the police department. The police department is already in those areas, and frequently they are called to the parks because the sheriff hasn't been policing them.
It's not a matter of not having these services. It's a matter of not compromising public safety. The question is there a more effective, efficient way to do it?
All right. Well, let's move on now because Congress was back in session this week, which meant that gun violence was once again front and center. There was a surprisingly strong vote in the Senate to let the debate go forward and a potentially significant proposal from two senators with solid conservative credentials. Still, our colleague Rick Horowitz knows the fight is far from over. Rick?
Here's this week's money quote from Senator Pat Toomey, Pennsylvania Republican and a longtime Second Amendment fan. "I don't consider criminal background checks to be gun control," he said on Wednesday. "I think it's just common sense." And he also said this, "Nothing in our amendment prevents the ownership of guns by any lawful person, and I wouldn't support it if it did." Our amendment, he said, that's the compromise Toomey worked out with West Virginia Democrat Joe Manchin. It would close one of the biggest gun sale loopholes. That's right, Toomey and Manchin, both with A ratings from the NRA, and they think expanding background checks would be a good thing, would make us safer. The wacko fringe disagrees. All the usual suspects, Cruz of Texas, Johnson of Wisconsin. Wasn't Oak Creek in Wisconsin? These guys didn't want to let the Senate even discuss a gun bill. Thanks, you guys. You guys with your hypotheticals, your paranoid delusions. What if government thugs are coming for your weapons? What if the burglar downstairs is 6 burglars, or 16, or 36, and they've all got grenade launchers and Kevlar vests? What if this? What if that? What if real-life death? Not hypotheticals, not fantasies. Real-life babies ripped to shreds by bullets. real-life families torn apart by grief. More than 3,000 dead from guns just since Newtown. That's a September 11th's worth of victims in less than 4 months. So don't complain that this or that gun safety proposal isn't strong enough to make a dent in all that carnage unless you're willing to strengthen it. Don't tell us that if the new rules won't stop every illegal gun purchase and every needless gun death, then why bother? Unless you're willing to say those same words to the parents of the children who might have been saved. And don't tell us about making mass murderers pay for their crimes with stiff prison terms when lots of these killers aren't just homicidal but suicidal. You're going to throw their bodies in a cell? How's that going to bring the victims back? So, one money quote this week, but danger quotes too, like this one from Mark Begich, a Democratic senator from Alaska and part of the filibuster fringe. "We love our guns," Mr. Begich explained. I'm sure you do. The question is, do you love your kids?
Thank you, Rick. Always appreciate your thoughts and perspectives. Well, good to be checking in with you guys again. I missed you. I've missed the fighting. It's kind of like family, isn't it?
Sort of an Easter egg hangover here. That's why we were so nice to each other. That can change, though.
There you go.
The sugar's gone. It's all on next week.
And we're gone. Have a great weekend, everyone.
We're done.
Bringing jelly.